Hey guys, this is Frank Yecker, and you're listening to Submission Radio.
Hey, this is Rich Franklin.
What's up, everybody? This is Chris Lieben.
This is Diego Sanchez.
Randy Couture.
Alice Overeem.
Hi, this is Stephen Bonner.
This is Don Fry.
Hey, I'm Phil, Mr. Wonderful Davis.
TJ Dillashaw.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
Submission Radio.
You're listening to Submission Radio.
Welcome to Submission Radio, episode 189. Dennis Kuratov here with Kasper Ozolowski on, I'm not going to say it, but you can guess it. It's not warm here in Melbourne, Australia. 19th of June, a Wednesday. Celebrating the Matildas win. How about that, Cas? The Australian female soccer team getting a win over Brazil, getting another win now. I'm not sure which country it was. I don't remember. But they're doing well, the Matildas. So congratulations to them. And much like an Australian team doing a good thing, you and me, we have a very, very fun episode of Submission Radio with some guests I'm really looking forward to speaking to this week.
That's right. It's a sexy show. It's a spicy show. I don't call you the Ari Gold of MMA for no reason. I would say without a doubt, you've outdone yourself this week. We have Israel Adesanya returning to the program. So much to speak to him about. He was in Africa. I want to find out some stories, some sexy stories from his holiday. Of course, there's rumors that him and Robert Whittaker will be fighting in, wait for it, gasp, not Australia, but Las Vegas. Could it be true? We'll speak to the man himself. Apparently, Eugene Berriman, his coach of City Kickboxing, was saying that he was willing to push his fight to a later date so that Alex Volkanovski could fight on the same card. Got to find out if that's true. And of course, we want to get his reaction to some of the things that Robert Whittaker said about him on the program when Rob was on last time. So that is going to be a big, fat, juicy interview. Tai Tuivasa coming off a loss at UFC Chicago just the other weekend, UFC 238. But what's going on with Red Velvet? What is the relationship like between Tai Tuivasa and Red Velvet these days? No, in all seriousness, him and Justin Willis have been going back and forth non-stop, so we've got to get to the bottom of that. Find out how Tai's doing after the loss in general. Also, he's opening up a store in Mount Druitt in Western Sydney. Got to get the hot goss on what he's doing there, what the store's all about. Also, Joesph Benavavidez, who fights next week against Lucia Formiga, the rematch. What is going on with the UFC's flyweight division? And since Henry Cejudo's become the champ, or the Triple C in a lot of circles, as people say, what's going on with the UFC's flyweight division? Dana White said he confirmed it's sticking around, but it sounded like he was ordering a hot dog, like, yeah, I'll have mustard one. The flyweight division is sticking around. So does he believe him? What is the future like? So a lot to talk to him about. Of course, Oscar Willis of themaclife.com. A lot of people don't know who Oscar Willis is. A lot of people just know him as the MacLife interviewer who does these phenomenal interviews on Media Day. Well, he's on the show. He's, I believe, going to be joining us from the UFC Apex Center, fresh before the UFC Contender Series. And he's got opinions, and you're going to be hearing them.
Absolutely, man. I can't wait to speak to him. We'll be talking about Chael Sonnen's retirement. I can't wait to weigh in on that one. He's going to be covering this Artem Lobov Paulie Malignaggi fight. He was actually at the Tyson Fury boxing match.
Yeah.
And it's great to have him on the show because, I mean, he's a close personal friend of ours. But outside of that, I mean, the MMA landscape, it's very, very different. And there's a lot of people doing really good work that I don't feel get the credit that they deserve. And I feel like Oscar Willis is one of these guys. And a lot of people will be like, oh, you guys are competition, blah, blah, blah. But that's not true. Our perception of it is like this. The best always rise to the top. You know, there's a lot of people doing this thing. There's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of people doing it. And you guys will have noticed on our social media or just in general in the sort of 5-6 years that we've been doing this, we've always been complimentary of the people that do it the best. And Oscar Willis, make no mistake about it, has been hitting the streets, hitting all the events and doing an amazing job covering events. He deserves credit, and he will get it on this episode of Submission Radio. Make sure to follow him and check him out. He is an absolutely fantastic man in his personal life, but with his coverage, I mean, he's really bringing a different flavor to MMA coverage that we are ourselves enjoying. So really excited to talk to him about that, Cass. Before we jump to our first guest, just a quick reminder to everybody out there, if you haven't subscribed on iTunes, jump on, subscribe, of course. We're on Stitcher, TuneIn, Podcast One Australia, check that out. And, of course, the YouTube channel. There is a video component to all of our interviews today, so jump on the YouTube channel, subscribe. We love your comments down the bottom. Give us your thoughts on the episode. You like it, you don't like it, the interviews that you dig, that you don't dig, your thoughts on some of the views expressed. We love hearing all of it. Of course, you can message us through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We respond to all those messages ourselves. We run all of those things ourselves. No Submission Radio marketing team. It's just me and Cass, so make sure to jump on and give us your thoughts. We love reading them, Cass. But with that, we have our first guest on the line. Cass, I'm super excited about this man because he hasn't been on the program since we played a game with him and his wife.
Yes.
What was that game called again?
Would you rather?
Would you rather?
We essentially ask him who he would rather fuck in hypothetical situations. And one time, his wife was in the car with him, and she played along.
I know, and ever since that day, he has not been back on the program. But alas, we have tracked him down. He looks like he's joining us from a remote location. And Cass, I believe you're about to introduce him.
All right, guys. Our next guest is a cornerstone, a pioneer of the UFC's flyweight division, set to take on Joesph Benavavidez in a rematch at UFC on ESPN3. Without a doubt, the best-dressed man in all of MMA, Joesph Benavavidez. Welcome back to Submission Radio. How are you, man?
Doing good. I'm not even dressed at all right now, so thanks.
Well, that's the best kind of Joesph Benavavidez and the one that we want in the program. So let's start with the burning question in everybody's minds. You put up a picture on Instagram of Mickey Rourke holding a dog in a boxing ring with no caption. What did it mean?
It's all interpretive. The people, typically, Instagram is, it's a site used for pictures. So I like to put up pictures that I like, whether it's something I relate to or whatever, or I'm doing. And I don't necessarily love, even though I've gotten better at it, is putting up pictures of myself. But I think there was a year span of time where I wasn't putting pictures of myself. It was just what I was feeling. Because the way I look at it is all right, it's your Instagram. You can only put so many pictures of yourself training, you and your dog, you and your wife, you and working out. So sometimes I just find other people that, if I was with my dogs at that time and I'm obviously a fighter and I'm boxing and I find that picture and it just speaks to me, and I feel like it's something I can relate to, then I put that because I don't have a picture of me holding my dog in a boxing ring. But it's I really like that picture. So I do that all the time with style icons, music icons, listen to someone's song or a movie I'm watching. Instead of saying, hey, I'm watching this movie, I put a picture of the movie or whatever, or the mood. I guess the kids would call it a mood, Yeah. Most people would just caption that Mickey Rourke and put mood AF or whatever. So I guess it's a mood, but I don't really understand those because a mood could be anything, you just get somebody doing something and it's a mood, but it doesn't seem like any mood you've ever really seen. So I don't think that makes sense. It's more just a feeling and a picture that I like and relate to, which that's what I do with Instagram. My outlook on Instagram is post what you like, not for likes. So I don't really post things that get likes and hashtags. I just post what I like because it's my Instagram.
I love it, man. And I think it's relatable, Assuming all goes well on June 29th against Joesph Benavavidez and you win and you look like a beast, Joe, I'm just going to put a picture up of you. I'll be well, I'm never going to fight in the UFC, but if I did fight in the UFC, that's what I imagine I would look like. So there you go. There's the mood.
Dude, some of my, people are inspired by different things, But, when I look back, when I look into the future, I hope that there's some me, some kid, in the future that finds pictures of me and Megan and he posts them as a mood or because there's some weird pictures of me and my dog Benny, but right now I'm posting Marlon Brando with his dog, or Robert, or Al Pacino with his dog, or dogs in the movie, whatever. I hope there's some kid growing up right now, maybe he's just born, but in 20 years he's going to be putting out pictures of me and Benny. And I think that'd be amazing. Or a couple finds pictures of me and Megan, or putting them up goals or something. That's kind of what I do it for. I just find iconic things that I like and put them up.
Nah, it's crazy time, especially if you think back in the day. Imagine some of the icons, guys like Elvis, guys like, Brandau having Instagrams and posting stuff on it. I think in 20, 30, 40, 50, man, because I could talk about this all day, people are going to realize, I can go on my great-grandfather's Facebook page and see what they were doing on June 3rd in video, and some of it, it's absolutely unbelievable. So I think that's one of the benefits of social media. Now, in all seriousness, though, you're a week away from taking on who's here again? Tell us, how's the preparation been going? And how is it compared to last time when you were getting ready for Formiga?
Good. It's different. Every camp's different. You do it a long time, and it's really what you do. You do your best, and that never changes. But all camps are different. I think people lie when every camp they say they feel the best they ever felt. It's the greatest camp they ever had, because it's not true. Every camp's different, and that's kind of what makes it good. This was a long camp, a great camp, different than my last one with him 6 years ago, but better in that way. At the end of the day, it's what we do, and I've had amazing fights. I've had amazing camps and not great results in fights, and I've had weird camps where I didn't think stuff was going to happen, and I had, great results in the fight. So all in all, you go in every day, you try to win every round, you try your best every practice, you see everything out, you see out your recovery, you see out your meals, your sleep, your rest, and, every camp, you just do the best you can, and, that's how I look at it. Like, I'm at this point now, it's like, this is what I do. When I got the fight, I was ready to fight within weeks. I'm ready to fight now, but it's just a formality. The date is kind of what you're left with, so the camp is a formality. But all in all, like, I'm always ready to fight, and the camp is really, for me, at this point, I'm not going to get tougher. I'm not going to forget how to fight. It's about, staying healthy, making a game plan really for the opponent, like specifics for the opponent, not so much everything else, and waiting for that date. So I'm excited. It's coming up.
I'm curious about that, actually, Jay, because we've seen fighters like Robbie Lawler, for example, sort of explain the same mindset, which is, hey, like, I've been fighting for a really long time. My training's changed now to the way it used to be. I'm just curious, when you mentioned, obviously, you know how to fight, what kind of sparring are you doing these days going into a fight compared to what you do previously? What kind of drilling are you doing these days compared to a fight that you do? Is it a lot less than before because it's something that you know so well at this point?
Yeah, the sparring intensity hasn't changed, but the amount I do it has. Because I think when you're coming up, you almost need fights before the fight, so that way you're not really surprised by anything in there. So, for instance, to make it simple, when I was at Alpha Male and I was starting in my first few fights, we would spar 3 or 4 times a week between MMA, boxing, 3 or 4 times a week. That way, when we have that fight, we've already gotten into a fight. But now that I've fought everything and seen about everything in the cage, the intensity of my sparring doesn't change, but I'm only sparring once a week, on top of like some touch sparring, obviously a ton of drills, and that's just sparring MMA. I still have about 4 live practices a week between grappling, MMA, sparring, and wrestling.
That's awesome. I think that's a really important to know. It's something that we've actually kind of always wondered, especially for guys like yourselves that have sort of, been around across different eras of the sport. I was also going to say, with this fight, you mentioned you were ready to take it, but I guess what was the interest and what was the motivation here? Because you've already beaten Formiga before, and it was a very decisive victory too in the first round. And also your last fight against Dustin Ortiz, that was another rematch. So you're on a bit of a Benavidez rematch world tour at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. They call me Joey 2 times.
I'll do that.
I'm having to beat everybody twice, including in the future, Cejudo. Once I get that fight after this one, having I get past Formiga, I have to do everything twice. So, yeah, I mean, the motivation, it's not anything crazy, anything romantic. It's what we do. It's our job. They call us to fight. They call us into work. That's what you do. You don't fear any man. You don't take any shortcuts. You don't take any easy routes. He's obviously gotten a lot better since our fight. He's actually ranked #1 ahead of me, which is crazy. I have a win over the champion and the #1 guy, but
yeah,
that's all it is that's the fight. That's the fight they want, and that's what I do. The way I look at it is I was a #1 guy for so long. Obviously guys want rematches. I wanted rematches, whether it be with Demetrius or somebody that I'd lost to. So, there's guys when you're at the top that want that opportunity again too. So, you always still have to prove you're at the top, even if it's against the same guy. It's a whole new fight.
A lot to unpack there. You just mentioned it, Henry Cejudo. That's obviously the end goal for you. How do you see that fight sort of materializing now that he holds 2 belts? And it kind of seems like he's moved up to bantamweight. When he spoke after the fight, he listed a bunch of guys that he wanted to fight, and none of them were really flyweights. How do you see that fight coming together, and do you think he comes back down to flyweight?
Yeah, well, at this point, you know, he is the biggest fight. He's the champion at both weights. So if you look at bantamweight and flyweight, he kind of controls both divisions. And if he wants to fight at bantamweight, which he got to, he won the belt, but now he's the champion. At the end of the day, it's kind of up to the bosses and that, you know, I mean, I don't know really. I think they're shifting kind of their thoughts on the flyweight division as of late. But the way I look at it is, I'm the only person. The people he called out were great call-outs, but they just don't necessarily make sense at the moment. Like, great fighters, great call-outs. Obviously, everyone knows what he's doing. He's calling out the more popular names, but you know, unfortunately, those popular names don't make sense for a title fight, which is what you'd be fighting Henry for right now. So you look at the scale of division, like what fights do make sense. You know, he beat Marlon, you know, for the title. You know, TJ's out. The guys he called out aren't necessarily in title contention. You know, you look at the number 1 guy at bantamweight, which would be Aljamain Sterling, and you look at the number 1 guy at flyweight, which would be the winner of me and Formiga. And having me come out of that, I make more sense than anybody right now. If he's the real double champ and wanting to defend in both weights, it's the flyweight's turn to get the action. He hasn't defended he hasn't fought in there. It'll be a while since he fought in there, since he did bantamweight last. And I just make the most sense. Nobody else has history with Cejudo, and not only history, a win over him. So that's what makes the most sense, is no one can say they have a win over him. His last win, he has to avenge that loss. And, you know, I love all the guys, but I think number 1 contenders, like, I make more sense than him and Aljamain, him and Jan. I think even, you know, playing from the outside, just flyweight in general, like Formiga has a split decision loss against Cejudo, so he's working to get back there as well. Obviously, you're talking to me, so, you know, I'm confident that I'm going to win and get it, but, you know, the 2 contenders at flyweight, he has a split decision loss to and a split decision win to, so a lot of history and already close matches, where at bantamweight, you know, he took out 2 guys, and, you know, now the other guys, he has contenders, but I think he has some history and some unfinished business at flyweight.
I guess that is the big question. Everybody's always wondering, what's the situation of the division? I'm curious, what has the UFC said to you going into this fight? Have they said anything about the future of the division and what's up for grabs? Is there anything official that Dana or Sean Shelby or anyone from the company has said to you going into the fight next week?
You know what? Not to me, but in public, if I mean, I probably pay more attention to this since it has to do with me in the division, but speaking about the division publicly, Dana said me and Formiga would be a number 1 contender fight to fight Henry for the title. So that's something he didn't say to me, but he said in public. And then after the Cejudo fight, he said that flyweight is sticking around. And I assumed he made that because he realized that the winner of that fight would make sense for the champion at both weights, the Triple C there, Henry Cejudo. So those were both good things, him saying they're sticking around after Cejudo won, and saying he was going to make me and Formiga as a number 1. So yeah, those were both good signs, and that's really as much as you can take it without looking too far forward, you know, over the fight in front of you.
I'm curious because obviously this is a rematch over a guy that you've beaten, but do you feel extra pressure in the sense that a lot of people see you winning this fight as the sort of primary way the division sticks around because you versus Cejudo is such a big fight? Is there any additional pressure in the sense that you are the biggest name in the division in a lot of ways apart from Cejudo, and if you lose, maybe that has some kind of impact on what happens to the division in the future?
Not necessarily the pressure from other people. Like, I'm always looking to make, like, my fans and supporters proud, obviously, and happy. Like, I love giving them that joy and, like, them rooting for me and it, you know, coming to fruition and them supporting me and me going out there and winning, whether it's a fan or, you know, a family member, a wife, a coach, you know, someone that sacrificed anything. But it's not as much pressure, you know, it's something that motivates you and inspires you. but it's not really pressure. The main pressure comes from, I think, within, the pressure you kind of put on yourself. And, even the company, like, they don't put pressure on you, like, hey, you have to win this because we need this fight. You can tell that's kind of hopefully where they want to go towards. But you put all that pressure on yourself because you're the one to gain from it, and you're kind of the one to lose from it. Fans will love you or hate you either way. It can change on a dime. Your family will always love you, but it's really that pressure within and knowing how to deal with it, that you feel, because, I do this sport to succeed. This title has eluded me. The division's been down, it's been out. I've been down and not out, and now, like, here we are kind of at a fresh start. So, it's all about the pressure you put on yourself and really how to manage that pressure and also the expectations of it. And thankfully, I've been in these positions before, and I've dealt with them on a good side, on a bad side, and I know how to deal with them, and I know how to deal with the pressure going into them. So it's not necessarily from other people, like I said. I mean, it just comes from always wanting to succeed, and you're going to want to do that when you're at the top.
I was going to say, people are sort of already kind of looking at Cejudo as, well, maybe he's going to be taking these money fights, bantamweight or featherweight or wherever he wants to go, and maybe he won't come back to flyweight. If not, people are already looking at you as potentially, the guy. You're a pioneer. You've been in the flyweight division since its very inception in the UFC. Could you see it sort of being built around you and you sort of running that division if Cejudo doesn't come back? And also, it's interesting because if that were to happen, then you and Formiga, given the rankings, that would be kind of an ideal fight for say like a vacant title.
Yeah. I don't think that's happening yet. I mean, the fight's in 2 weeks, and for all
of course,
the division is running. But I mean, that's a great thing to do. I mean, right now Cejudo is. I mean, I guess for me it's different. Like, I would say I obviously want to take the belt from Cejudo, but I already have a win over him first, so he's kind of the one that has to come avenge the loss, But like the DJ thing or something, if there was that situation, he left and I became champion, be like, damn it, well, I knew I wanted to beat him, but now the way things have mixed up, Cejudo beat him, I beat Cejudo, who knows, but obviously I've been here since the beginning of the division, and I feel, like, maybe not to the public or anything, but personally, like, I always feel responsible for it, and I feel like I'm the biggest fan of it. So if I was able to continue to represent it in a bigger capacity, being the champion or whatever, then that'd be great. But people look at the division however they want, whether the face or it's their favorite fighter or their most exciting or whatever. But I try to be all those things for the flyweight division, and not only just for the division, just fighting in general, just being yourself, people take to it or not. And that's what I always try to do. But obviously, I get a lot of credit for being in this division and kind of representing that as well. So it's nice. I like it.
For sure. Now, you're in the co-main event of this big ESPN card. I mean, the big question, a lot of eyes will be on your fight. A lot of people will be happy to see you on that card. But are you going to put an emphasis on getting on the mic afterwards and sort of calling for Cejudo next, or for Dana White to keep the division around after your fight? Are you seeing this as your opportunity to sort of send out a message through the media to the fans and to the UFC?
Yeah, I mean, you get the win, you're going to express your mind, but, the way I look at that is it's silly to really talk about it before it happens, because, like, that's a great thing to look forward to and a possibility that you can take advantage of, but none of that happens without going out there and winning. So when I win, whatever is in my mind and whatever is rightfully, the right thing to be said, and whatever my feelings are, you better believe you're going to hear them. But that's like, going out there and acting like you want to fight already, or, saying like, I grind in silence and my success makes the noise or something like that. Like basically talking about the work before it's done. And if anyone knows me, like, that's not something I do. Obviously what we're talking about right now, there's good things to have in the future, but yeah, I mean, when I win, I think it's undeniable that I'm the rightful contender for Cejudo, and it's undeniable that the division should stay around for that fight at least. So, however it's expressed, that's how it's going to be.
Appreciate the time, Joe. Just really quickly, one more thing before we let you go. Obviously, Uriah Faber, you know, a fan favorite, a guy that a lot of people love, and a guy that you trained with for a very, very long time is returning to action. Just curious about what you think of his decision to come back to fighting, and you know, can he have, you know, can he kind of break the curse of sort of older guys, legends of the sport, coming back and not necessarily having the runs that they want? Do you think he can come back and sort of be successful today?
Yeah, man. I mean, they don't call him the California Kid for nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 40 years old, but he's still a kid. You know, he's a new dad. I think he's just reinvigorated, inspired. Like, age doesn't mean anything. The guy's training every day. Even when he retired, I mean, he went out with the win. He obviously wasn't done. You know, he was still competing on a high level when he left, and he's been training ever since. Faber is a winner, and he wouldn't go out there, you know, if he didn't think he was doing the right things to win and compete. So, you know, I expect his best effort. I expect, you know, kind of a California kid of old, because, you know, that's why he would do it. And, yeah, man, I'm excited for it. I think it's a fun thing in Sacramento, you know, where he obviously has a big support system. So I think it's going to be a great show.
Well, there you guys go. Check out Joe fighting on June 29th. That's the 30th in Australia, in New Zealand against Husia for Omega. Of course, check him out on Twitter and Instagram at JoeJutsu. And Joe, just quickly, your website, dapperscrappers.com, where you take photos of fighters in their style and fashion on Media Day. Just quickly, as we wrap up, what are a couple of sort of general picks that people need to check out from that website?
Oh, all of them are good, man. You know, everyone brings something different to the table. You know, that's why I love this sport. You know, it's obviously individual with our mindsets, our interviews, our interest, and style, fashion. I like, you know, I call it style because style is very individual. It's an individual thing, you know. Everyone on there, you know, you might see a picture that, you know, you like and relate to, but somebody else wouldn't. And that's what's great about it, is no one's bad, no one's wrong. It's like everyone's out there representing their individualities, individual style, just like a fighting style, you know, can express some character, can build a different layer of the fighter. And it's just nice to see all these guys out there, you know, outside of a fight kit and a Reebok outfit, and sharing a little bit of their personal style with us. So, yeah, man, go check out any of it. You know, I got media days, I got some individuals. Sometimes I just find fighters backstage, like that's always fun. So, yeah, man, just check it out. I think there's something for everybody on there. You know, the girls have really been bringing it lately. The females have really been, like, stepping up the style game. So, yeah, man, like, I think there's something for everybody on there. There's some good highlights in the stories from some past events. And if you all ever click on the hashtag, I mean, you can see kind of the archives of when it started, you know, 2 years ago. So, it's all good. Something for everybody.
Got to ask, since we're based out of Australia, who's the most fashionable Aussie fighter that you've taken a photo of for that website?
That's hard to say. I mean, like I said, there's no.
You got Tai Tuivasa, Israel Adesanya. You got Robert Whittaker. Oh, he's from New Zealand, Israel Adesanya, but you got Robert Whittaker.
Adesanya has great style because it's very individual, very personal, and very him. And, like, style is all something the individual possesses. And if you look at him as a person, as a personality, as a style, it all kind of transcends that. Like, the guy can be wearing Reebok and kind of make it his own. So if we're talking style, I mean, there's no one better than Style Bender.
Awesome. Well, he's on the program today, Joe, so you'll be happy to hear that. Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to see your fight, and I hope you have a great preparation for it. Thank you so much.
Guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Joe. Bye.
Hey, this is Tony Okagui Ferguson, and you guys listen to Submission Radio. Keep tuning in, guys.
All right, guys. Our next guest joins us straight out of Sydney with his new Muscle Bro store opening soon in Mount Druitt in Sydney. One half of the Half Caste podcast representing Western Sydney. He's also the man who discovered Red Velvet on the streets of Chicago. Tai Tuivasa, welcome back to Submission Radio, man.
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Oh, you want to go for it, Ty? Go for it. Order your food.
I'll just go to this interview and then I'll order. Sorry. So all good. Yeah, sorry, my bad. I called before and then they called back. You
can order while you're doing the interview, Ty, because that way, by the time we finish, the food will come. Did you want to order? It's totally fine. No worries.
No, all good. All good.
All right. Well, I was going to say, Red Velvet. I know that Chicago didn't exactly go your way, but finding Red Velvet and the streets of Chicago, that's got to be a bit of a highlight, right?
Oh, she's a star. She's a star. Her album's dropping soon. She's cracked it.
I feel like you being her hype man, kind of like Flavor Flav to Red Velvet. Would that be a role that you can embrace?
It's Mud Cake and Red Velvet. That's it.
Mud Cake and Red. I feel like anytime you fight now, Red Velvet's got to make appearances in your embedded.
She's walking me out to my next fight.
See, that's what people want in Chicago. If you fight in Australia, hopefully, they bring her down. The UFC need to take care of this. I was going to ask Tai, looking back on that fight, how would you sort of assess it? I know it didn't really go the way you wanted, but what did you sort of take away from that one?
I haven't got to watch it back properly yet, but I just feel like I got rocked in the first, and I just felt like I just couldn't get me bearing. You know what I mean? I felt like every time I thought I was going to do something, he just beat me to the punch, and I just felt, But I thought I'd come back, but not enough. Obviously not enough. But that's the fight business. That's how it goes, It's not fucking go out there and pitter patter. You get punched in the head.
I like your approach to the fight game, because even before you lost in the UFC, you always sort of mentioned that you win some and you lose some. That's the fight game, and I think it's a really good sort of mental approach to take it, because that is how the game works. You will win some, you will lose some, and that's how it plays out. But mentally right now, are you more motivated than ever to sort of get back in the gym and try and sort of work on the next fight, next outing after that?
Well, I was last fight, you know what I mean? I hit this camp fucking blazing, you know what I mean? And I trained hard. Man, I was confident. I was really confident. But like I said, I got clipped early. I think it was early. And I just felt like, fuck, I just couldn't get me, me flow back. But the same thing goes, fucking you win, you lose. That's just how it goes. But this camp's gonna, I'm gonna get back into it again. I'm gonna just sit with my team and go over it. But right now, man, I've got home. I've been busy trying to get this shop open, meetings here and there. Everything's going on, so it's all good. This is life. This is how it goes.
I was gonna say, so busy you can't even order breakfast. Submission Radio interrupting your breakfast or your lunch. I wanted to ask Tai. There was, I guess, a bit like some controversy in a weird moment in between rounds. He had a choke in. I think he might have tapped, but I think it was after the bell. Do you remember that? What exactly happened?
Yeah, no, it wasn't a tap. It was like fucking buzz. The bell's fucking gone. Like, jump up. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? I'm trying to breathe, and you're fucking sitting on me. That's all it was. That's why when I remember the third round and everyone started booing, and I was like, what the fuck? And I'm like, well, for one, if you don't know me or you do know me, I'm not gonna fucking tap. So that's a big, I'm not gonna tap. Especially if you got my neck, I'm gonna go out. That's just how it is. But it was more like a, come on, Buzz, like the fucking bell. It was like 5 seconds after the bell, so it wasn't like a. You know what I mean? But, yeah, that wasn't... As if I'm going to tap. I've had my knee snapped before and didn't fucking tap. Like, I'm not going to tap if you got my neck.
No, absolutely.
I don't give in that easy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, because you don't want to be at a disadvantage after the bell rings and having someone holding onto your neck when it's not
He was just on top of me. I was like, Buzz, like, come on.
Well, let me ask you, because obviously you've got a lot going on. You've got your new store opening up. You've got all your meetings. But, of course, you failed to mention the social media exchange between you and Justin Willis. And it really seems like he's locking onto you since being released by the UFC. What did you think of this sort of weird Matrix video that he posted on Instagram where he puts his face over Neo's?
Man, he's a disrespectful piece of shit. He put a Samoan song on in the background and thought that I wasn't going to notice. But, like, he's just... That's all good. Like I said, I've been DMing him for a year and he hasn't seen one. Not one. And I'm doing my talking, trying to do it in private with him, and he just wants to be a fucking big noter and wants to be. He's a dog, an informant. He's just, yeah. Justin, he's just showing how low he is. He doesn't have a job now. He's gonna try and suck on the man's other hole so he can get back in. Suck it from the back, mate. You know what I mean? Like, seriously. What a man. What a man.
I was going to say, oh man, that's hilarious. I was going to say, you said you DM'd him and he hasn't seen it. What exactly have you been DMing him? Like, have you been trying to sort this out in private?
I've been DMing him for years, for a whole year now. And he won't look at it. He don't even look at it. He doesn't even give me the scene. You know what I mean?
What are you trying to say though? Like in your DMs, what are you sort of trying to sort out?
I'll show it soon enough because he's just a show pony. I'll say let's meet up. What do you mean? We'll be men. We'll do this. Meet up and bring a bag as well. I'll bring a bag. We both get paid. Whatever.
So were you trying to set up a fight like outside, just kind of like let's squash this outside of the UFC?
Yeah, I told him. I said once. I said, yeah. I'll meet up, you bring your money, and then no cameras, and we'll see whatever.
Do you know how much money were you thinking of bringing? What was the amount?
I said 100K, make it appealing at least. But I didn't even get a seat.
Oh man!
Did you offer to fly over there to do this, or?
Look. At the moment, he's just begging for a job. I'm not the UFC. You know what I mean? He's just trying to use my name to get a job. With a bum. Let's call it a bum. His dad would be embarrassed. Should be embarrassed. I would be.
I'm just wondering what you thought about a story that's sort of floating around that someone came up and was messing with Curtis Blades in the Fighters Hotel ahead of his fight with Justin Willis. And then Justin said he had nothing to do with it, but it was his friend who was coming up and challenging. Yeah, and he was challenging Curtis to a sparring session after Justin fights him. What do you make of that whole situation, man?
A dog. He recorded it. That's an informant. You may as well just dob on yourself.
Did it kind of remind you of the Mark Hunt situation, Adelaide? Because obviously we were there and it happened at the weigh-in. I believe you said you got as far as you grabbing him around the throat.
So you think that's like what we did to him? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm not saying that that's what you did to him. I'm saying in this situation when he was kind of, I guess, messing around, that was kind of similar to the way he was messing around with Mark Hunt.
Oh, his attitude, what do you mean? People know him now. That's why he's not around. Like, it doesn't take long for people to realize, hey, this cunt's a Gronk. Like, you know what I mean? And just people don't like him. But people that train at his own gym don't even like him. But I suppose he's just still around. He's like a rash, like a fly.
I'm just wondering, Tai, obviously he's being released from the UFC. He was on the MMA Hour and he wouldn't really give a reason as to why it happened. Why do you think the UFC released him?
Well, you can't, when can you start going, oh, I need to lose more weight. I need to have this much time. Like, who the fuck are you? You don't even have a belt. Like, shut up. This is your job. You know what I mean? Like, well, that's how I look at it. I'm a fighter. Like, if I need to fucking make money for my kids and someone goes, oh, you need to fight, well, guess what? Book the flights. You know what I mean? It's on. I don't think you have the right to, maybe, yes, no. You're not even, who are you?
It's an interesting situation because on one side, it's a fight that a lot of people would want to see you versus Justin Willis in the UFC. It would be exciting for a lot of fans, really want to see you take him on after all of this. But on the other side of things, you're kind of the only way that he might make it back into the UFC. And for you to sort of knock it back, that's kind of worse for him in a lot of ways. So are you in a bit of a conundrum where on one side you get to fight him?
That's what I say. Bend over and suck it from the back. That's what I say. And I'm going to laugh. Because when I see him, he's going to cop it anyway, regardless.
Would you
all talk is talk. When I see him, it's on.
Would you want this to be the next fight, potentially? Because he feels like he will make it back into the UFC, either in the next fight or at some point.
Work your fucking big titties way back in and flash whoever you got to flash. But don't flash me. I've already seen it. I've been offering you out for a year, you muppet. You know what I mean? He's not really like he's just the laughing. He's pretty much the laughing stock of Australia now. Like he's not even worth putting back in there. Like once you become, you know what I mean? Cunts just want to watch him to get flogged, and then they're gonna forget about him.
I mean, this social media thing, you mentioned that he put the Samoan song in the back and he's being really disrespectful. Does it get to a point where it's just stepped over the line and it's too much? Do you feel like it's getting to that point now where he's doing too much? It's a little bit...
It's all good. People like that get found out real quick. They get found out.
So in this situation, I guess... Would you be saying that, okay, you'll be looking towards fighting somebody else, and if he can make it back into the UFC on his own, then maybe this is a fight that goes down. But if not, you're not going to be the reason that gets him in?
I fight in the UFC. It's like me going up to you and going, oh, can you get me a bucket of chicken wings? You don't fucking work at KFC. Like, how does that work? You know what I mean? Like, oh, can you get me a family box? Well, fucking cunt, I don't even work at KFC. Like, how... What do you mean? How is that meant to... That's not... You know what I mean? It just doesn't work. And then, because it's making it worse by him trying to... Well, not trying, begging me to use my name, I'm just sitting back laughing now. But the funny thing is he can write, oh, just say yes or no. I've been trying to fight you for a year, you fucking muppet.
It's an interesting situation because... He believes in this fight. He said he was on the MMA Hour. He said that he believes he'd kill you in a fight. I mean,
yeah, but he also believes that he's in the UFC. He's not. He's delusional. He's lost. Like I think he's a couple. You know what I mean? We've all been for a few things, but I think he's a bit. I don't know. I don't know how anyone could stand him.
Let me ask you this, Tai. Obviously, you mentioned that you're taking some time away and you're taking meetings and you're opening your new store. What is your sort of timeline to coming back into the octagon? Are you looking at a particular card? There's this big super card with Israel Adesanya and Robert Whittaker that's happening at the end of the year in Sydney, it looks like. Is that something you target?
Oh, well, if it's in Australia, I have to be on it. You know, I want to be on it. But obviously, I want to get back. You know, I'm just resting up. Just resting my leg. My leg kind of fucking blew out from kicking. But I'm just resting that. It's nothing bad. Just need a bit of rest for 2 weeks, and then I'm back into it, bro. Like I just lost. Like can't acting like you're dead. Like I'm sweet. Like I've lost worse things. You know what I mean?
It sounds like you're pretty fired up, right? Like after you heal the leg and after you rest a little bit, sounds like you're fired up to get back into the gym and sort of resume training.
Yeah, of course. I'm coming off 2 losses. I've never really lost like that. But like I said, it's different. The first one I got dropped, and then the fight finished. This time I went the rounds. But you know, the internet is what it is. People think, because you lose 2, you're gonna get cut. Like. It doesn't always matter about that. I'm coming to put on a show every time I fight, you know what I mean? I hope that's why fans, they tune in to watch. As long as I keep doing that, I should hold my position, you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah. And by the way, I like this relaxing music that's in the background of this restaurant. It's kind of like a zen Tai Tuivasa. Let me ask you, man, one of the great things about you is that, you take humor well, and someone created a little video on Instagram of you talking about your losses. What I love about that, though, is you reposted it. You reposted it on your own personal Instagram. Then you found the guy who did it, and you were like, good job. It was funny.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons people love you so much, man.
Oh, well, fuck, if you can't, like, it's true. It was me in the video, you know what I mean? I can't sit there and go, nah, it wasn't me. You know what I mean? Nah, it's not true. Like, Dana White say you got released, but no, it's not true. Like, it's all a lie. Like, just keep watching. Like, it's not. I'm a realist. Like, where I'm from is like, fuck. I was pissing myself for ages about it. I lost it. I messaged him. How about the funniest? I messaged him. I said, "Did you make it?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "You fucking little shit." I said, "You need a hiding." I said, "But I'll pay you because it's fucking funny."
Wow. What do you mean? What do you mean pay him? Like with actual money, or just like I'll pay that? Like,
nah, I mean I'll pay that. Like that's funny. You're a funny cunt. You know what I mean? But if I see you, I'm probably gonna slap your little bum.
Warning to anyone making Thai videos. Just quickly, obviously in the meantime, you're going to be busy with this Muscle Bros store opening up in Mount Druitt in Sydney. For those who don't know, Muscle Bros obviously like supplements, protein, that kind of stuff. What is your relationship like with Muscle Bros, and what made you want to open a store in Mount Druitt and get involved?
My brother, my best mate started it, so I've been a part of Muscle Bros since it started. Yeah, so I was always going to open one. It was just a matter of time and when. And yeah, now's a good time. So I'm looking forward to that opening. Plus, Mount Druitt doesn't have one. We got one in Penrith. We got one in Tukely. Now we're going to have one in Mount Druitt. So looking forward to that.
And there's a really cool FTA apparel. We saw there was a new T-shirt out. Tell us, what can fans expect from the FTA apparel? There's some really cool stuff coming out, I assume.
Yeah, FTA apparel. We've got some jumpers and that coming out. We've just been, like I said, I've just been busy as there's only
Do you design those yourself? Do you work with the designers on those? Like, do you have a say on what it looks like?
I have a say, but we're gonna do some more with designing and stuff and getting it out there. Like I said, there's only one of me, so I've been my missus has been taking care of that and some stuff like that. So it's good.
Nice. FTA, for those who don't know, of course, from the area, representing Western Sydney. And speaking of the area, man, we imagine there's a few half-cast podcasts coming from the location soon. When are you and Tyson coming back with some fresh episodes?
Yes, there is actually. We went to the footy the other day. Panthers versus Rabbits. Got pissed. So that was fun. We'll have some clips of that coming out soon. But yeah, we're definitely going to get more vocal and get into it, especially on the media side of stuff. I need to get into it more. So I'm pumped. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to fucking fighting again. I fucking want to smash someone.
Feel bad for the person that has to take your order after this interview. I feel like we put you in a bad mood with all this Justin Willis talk. We apologize, people. But just quickly, is Red Velvet going to make an appearance on the Halfcast podcast? Because I feel like she should have some kind of segment. I'm
flying her over on the DAs.
That's someone who will answer the DMs. That's not going to see. That's going to get answered. Make sure to check out Ty's Muscle Bros store in Sydney's Mount Druitt, guys, and buy his FTA apparel from the area. Follow him on Twitter and Insta at Bam Tuivasa. Really appreciate your time, Ty. I could chat to you forever. Just quickly, what are you ordering? I feel like there's been a lot of hype here. What's the order?
They do these platters here. Look, Manic Organic. That's a shout out, Penrith.
Nice.
They do. I think this Aussie breakfast looks good. It's like a platter thing.
Oh yeah.
Fuck. Where's the camera? Something. It's healthy. It's got sausages, hash browns, pancakes, wedges. So all the healthy stuff.
Yeah, they have the same food at the UFC PI, I believe. All right, well, enjoy the Australian platter, Ty. Thanks so much for jumping on with us, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, boys.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
This is Chael Sonnen, and you are listening to Submission Radio.
All right, guys. Our next guest is simply one of a kind, putting on an unbelievable performance against Kelvin Gastelum to capture the UFC interim middleweight title. Fresh off his holiday, he joins us on the program ahead of the biggest New Zealand-Australian title fight in the history of MMA and the UFC. Some people know him as the Stylebender, others simply its champ. Regardless, he is Israel Adesanya. Israel, it's such a pleasure to welcome you back to Submission Radio. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Always a pleasure when you come on, man. First of all, we got to find out about your holiday, Israel. It was supposed to happen for a million years. Time again, you had to put it on ice, taking all these fights, and it looked like you made up for that with a pretty epic experience. Tell us, bay time in Africa, and what were some of the highlights, man?
Man, I mean, I think it was 3 times. I wanted to do like a tour of Europe because, you know, it always looked cool whenever all my friends went. See their photos, see their videos, and yeah, they kept on falling through. Then the next fight would come through, Brunson, then Anderson Silva, then Gastelum, and eventually I was just like, fuck. I don't, for whatever reason, I kept on getting this like home calling was feeling that I should go back home, go back to Nigeria. And I'm glad I did, because that was, for me, just a grounding experience, because you need to, like, it's good for the soul to do that once in a while, just to ground yourself and return to your roots. And I'm so glad I said, fuck Europe. I'm just going to go here instead, go back home. Because Europe can always be there. You know, Europe will, you know, but yeah, it was a different experience this time, because I didn't even realize. I told my dad I just want to go low key and just slide in under the radar and nothing. He's like, no, you can't do that. I was like, why? He's like, it won't be possible. Like, too many people know you. And I didn't really believe him, but man, holy shit, I believe him now, because I've felt it. Even at the airport, I had people like hit me up. Just people from different walks of life, people that don't even watch, I didn't think would watch the UFC, but
wow,
I was getting a lot of, I just started watching the UFC because of you. I started watching the UFC because of you, and I watched all your other fights, and I'm like, for me, it was just crazy, the reach, like, you know, power of the internet, the reach that, you know, you can get to so many different people now, and it's just, yeah, it was humbling. Even in certain, like, when I went to, like the rural areas, you still got people like who were recognizing me. So that really, yeah, it was just a surreal experience. And then after that, went to Dubai, and that was another like fucking mind-blowing experience as well, in its own way. And just meeting people that I never really thought I'd be meeting, not even by me requesting, but them requesting them to meet me, like the Sheikh Mohammed. And, you know, also hung out with Sam Fortify, who was a rapper I used to listen to back in the day, and chopped it up with him because he's in the app game now, from the rap game, and he just put me on some game about how he kind of like settled in Dubai and made a lot of cash just through apps. And yeah, I just got inspired from that whole trip, just Dubai and Nigeria. And yeah, it let me know a lot of things about how this game is run on different levels. So it was humbling. It was a humbling experience.
I was going to say, so in a lot of ways, was this kind of a realization for you about sort of how big you are and how big your reach is? I guess in some ways you didn't realize it before. Because I know you always referred to yourself as kind of like the runt of your litter when it came to, like, you know, you and Nigeria and your family. And now I guess this is kind of in a subtle way a goal for you, right? To inspire people back in Nigeria and sort of get them sort of on the, not so much bandwagon, but, you know, into the sport.
Yeah, I always said I wanted to be like Pacquiao. When he boxed, like in the sense, like when he boxed, he shut down the Philippines. So I've got people now in Nigeria waiting up till 4 a.m. to watch me fight live. You know, a lot of people, millions of people, and that speaks volumes. You know, and yeah, I still am the runt, because even when I was back home, I see all these kids. Even when I went to the like a gym. Well, not a gym really, like a stadium, the sporting stadium, and I trained there for an hour and a bit with one of the trainers. He kind of just said, "You're training." I was like, "Okay," because I just went there to watch, and watching some of these kids, like even little girls as young as like 3, hitting the pads. And I'm like, man, I am the runt of my people, and I still stand by that, because a lot of people from where I'm from, just their genes is different, they're bred differently, and yeah, you see why like the colonizers, you know, enslaved a lot of people from where I'm from, because just the way they're built, even just the way they walk. And I'm like, some people you can just tell you never hit the gym before, but they just jacked. Just imagine like if you hit the gym, what's possible if someone showed you how to like wrestle, someone showed you how to like kick, and even just teaching a kid. I put it on my Instagram. I taught a kid how to kick properly. He was kicking well, but just I improved his kick just with a few words, and boom, instantly he just amazed me. And that was only a little snippet of it, because we chopped it up for a little bit after that. And man, it's inspiring. The whole ordeal was just inspiring for me.
Careful, man. He could be the Israel Adesanya to your Anderson Silva one day. Don't teach him
I'll
to.
be glad. Taught him a few things.
Yeah, Israel, it's interesting that you mentioned that moment from the Nigerian Boxing Club, because when we were looking through your feed, that was a really cool moment, the part where you were showing the kid how to kick and just what it meant to everybody there, and just to see how excited and how much of an inspiration you are to everybody over there in Nigeria. But I'm also curious to hear some of the craziest stories from your trip. For example, we see you were feeding tigers. We imagine that, and your Instagram stories had some fun stuff as well. You and your friends having a good time. Are there any crazy stories that you can share with us from your trip? Anything that stands out that was sort of mind blowing that you didn't capture on camera?
Yeah, there was a moment when we went to like the slums. Like we went to the slums in Lagos, one of them. Because Lagos reminds me of maybe even Brazil, because the middle class is just kind of emerging now, but there's a big wage gap. There's those who are just like super baller millionaires, and then there's like those who have nothing, and there's those in between. But it's a huge wage gap. And went to the slum where literally it's just, I just wanted to kind of just walk around and kind of just see if there was anything I can kind of, you know, I don't really do these things for the gram or for the likes. I just do it because I want to. So I was just going in there, just maybe even like show the kids some love, buy them like a whole, like a lot of things they need or whatever. But then the first day we went there, we kind of got stood over by these gangsters, and they were like, "What are you doing out here?" Like, you know, and everyone's over for like tips. So for me, like my guy AB kind of just said we need to go because it could get really ugly, and we only had one security with us. So I just went. After that, I went back the next day, just purely on my own ego. I went back the next day with more security, and then kind of like caused a fuss, just because we're rolling around, and it's like a floating village. It's a floating village that is just, I think, built on like dirty sewage water. It's beautiful from above. If you see one of my videos from the sky, like a big maze. When you get down inside it, it's just, it's rough. And a lot of people who live there, that's where they're born. That's where they'll die.
Wow.
So on the way out, there was a few fights, commotions. It was like a bit like a zombie apocalypse, really. Straight up, like, because when we're trying to leave, like, our cars were blocked because people were just trying to reach out for like notes and stuff. So, and here I am going there shirtless with my fucking chest rig on, fucking 3 gold chains, flexing, just because I didn't like the way I got treated the day before by the fucking wannabe gangsters. I'm not wannabe gangsters. These are real killers with bodies on them. You can kind of tell by the marks they have on them. Like, they get hired by politicians and shit to like do things. So I was in the mix amongst that, and even one of the guys kind of like I don't like to like kiss and tell, but things happen. I didn't do anything crazy, but I'm just saying, like, put it this way, my camera guy Jeff, he feared for his life.
So you mean to tell us that after all that you've described, you weren't scared at any point?
Nah, that's the weird thing. It's even like practice for me. It's practice of staying calm in the chaos. Like when the big dog comes through and starts asking questions, and it's like, "Who are you?" I was like, "I'm just hanging out." Because he looked like he said like I look like an actor or something, like a Hollywood dude. I was like, "Nah," and I kind of just showed him a clip on my phone, and then he kind of like, "Oh, okay," and I showed him like the video of me with the belt. He's like, "Yeah, I'm a champion too." Because I think he was a weightlifter. He's a big, jacked up dude, like, looked like a fucking silverback. So I can see why he ran the place. And then I got a belt, and I was like, "What kind of belt? Is it Gucci?" It came out of my mouth, and I was like, I probably shouldn't do that in his own. Because look, if we're in the midst of their maze, if they decide, fuck you guys, we don't know the way out, but they know that place like the back of their hands. So and they got numbers. We probably had like, I think 4 security guards with us with AKs. They've got guns too, and they've got numbers, and they're not scared to die. That's the difference. So, it got tense because one of them started like kicking off. You see a little bit on the clips, like the guy just yelling and shit like that. But wow. Jeff was fearing for his life because it was just one of those situations that one little small step, and it could get ugly. But I like that kind of shit because it's practice, keeps me alive. And I'm crazy. I do things just for the story, and I've got that story to tell off camera.
It's in the movie. It's in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, Israel, we're very excited to have you back. And of course, everybody's wondering when the super fight with Robert Whittaker is going to go down. Recently, we saw some news circulating about the fight possibly not happening in Australia. We saw that you said it was fake news. So tell us, what is the current situation?
Dana replied to my story saying it's fake news. I don't know why. For me, I thought that publication stuff would be a little bit more credible, but I got told like, nah, they just put out shit all the time, like they're business, and you kind of whiff of anything, they just put it out as if it's real. And as soon as I saw it, I put it on my story, and Dana replied like within 10 minutes saying fake news. I was like, okay, good. So yeah, ignore them. It'll be dumb for them to put it anywhere else apart from Australia or New Zealand. But I'm thinking Australia. I'm thinking Sydney because that's where he's from.
What's as far as time frame? What are you thinking? Because the card was rumored around October. Is that what you're hearing as well?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. But no one said anything to me officially, so I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know. But I know things are moving. I'm moving places soon. I'm traveling a little bit, so I'm sick of planes. Fucking hell, I never thought I'd even say that. Like, I'm sick of flying, but I enjoy the lifestyle. If I could teleport, that'd be great. That'd be really good for what I do. But yeah, I'll be traveling soon. Just know that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the cool things that popped up, and I don't know how much you know about this, is that apparently it was supposed to be around the same time as the NRL Grand Final or something, and that's been causing issues. Have you heard anything about this? Is this actually a real issue, or are people just sort of making things up here?
People just clutching at straws, maybe trying to find stories for whatever reason, but don't pay it any mind. Like, our fight's happening in Australia. Even if it's a weekend behind the NRL or on the same night, I'm pretty sure we'll still triumph over any event that's going to happen, because this is fighting at the end of the day. You know, no disrespect to any other sport, and not trying to like compete with the national sport, of Australia, but no matter what, we'll still sell out. I'm sure the NRL and the UFC can sell out on the same night. There's enough people, people just have to make a tough choice. Like, do I want to go watch these guys kick a ball around, or do I want to watch two bad like warriors from two different lands slay each other?
No disrespect to the grand final, but there'll be one next year. Whereas this fight, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I was going to say, and I want to clarify this with you, Israel, because we had your coach, Eugene Barrowman, obviously of City Kickboxing, on the show, talking about Alexander Volkanovski's fantastic win. A lot of people are expecting him to get that next title shot, and he still might. But he said that apparently you were a little bit miffed about him maybe being passed over, so much so that you were even willing to push your fight at one point. Is that true?
Hey, I get to relax till to November or December. I'm not fussed, because fuck, it seemed clear cut. Like, it would have been. It still might happen with Max Holloway, but I just thought, Max being the reigning featherweight champ for a long time now, defeating Aldo twice, it's a good story. Like, he fights Max in Australia, I fight Robert in Australia. I headline, he co-headlines, and it will just be fucking cool for the whole gym. But for whatever reason, Frankie got the shot. No disrespect to Frankie, he's a legend. He's done a lot for the sport. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. But I just thought, based off of one win, it's like, it's all about what you've done, I guess, and who you know, not really what you're doing currently. But I don't know. I just know if whoever wins the next one, Alex has got the next shot. Whoever wins out of Frankie and Max.
Because Eugene was on here and he was talking about the fact that you guys put in a lot of work to build an Australasian card for the people down here at the end of the year, and that we're in a different place where it doesn't have to be Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm. It could be you and Robert Whittaker. It could be Alex Volkanovski fighting for a title. It could be guys like Dan Hooker and guys that we grew organically in the area on this card. So how much of a mistake do you think it would be, like, if UFC said, all right, Alex, you fight over in Vegas, for example, not really capitalizing on the fact that the sport has grown so much in this Australasian region?
It's silly because you're like exactly what he said. We've kind of prepped all this and harvested it to the point where it's gotten to, just because we saw what was possible before anyone else did. So yeah, it'd be silly for them, and they'd lose a lot of money. Why would you want to take homegrown talent somewhere else when you can actually take it to somewhere where people give a fuck? Like, Vegas gets a lot of UFC cards, Australia and New Zealand don't. So why would you even contemplate that? It's silly. It's silly, and if the UFC doesn't like money, that's what they can move it somewhere else. But if they love money, I know they do. So do I. Yeah, we can do it in Australia.
Outside of sort of the date and when this fight happens, because obviously it will happen at some point, you're coming off a massive victory over Kelvin Gastelum to become the interim champion. Just wondering, sort of, how do you look back on that fight? I feel like you did a lot of interviews afterwards. I'm not sure if you sort of got a chance to properly watch it and soak it in. How do you look back on it?
I've watched it a few times now.
Yeah.
I watched it a few times, but I haven't watched it in like 2 months now. Not in 2 months. I haven't watched it in like maybe a month and a half. So I'm due for another watch, because it's good for me sometimes just to kind of rewatch the whole fight and just go, because I learn something new every time I watch it. So I'm due for another watch, and yeah, it's one of those things that I just, every time I watch it, I'm still surprised at, like the depths I'm willing to go to, like what I did. That's why I said, like, so, you guys don't know how I live, man. That's some crazy shit. My friends, my face. Glasses over there right now, just like. They know how crazy I am, and they know how I like to live. So I've done some shit in my time, but that fight itself, one of the craziest things I've ever done.
Wow.
And I'm grateful for that moment. So yeah, I look forward to this next fight, because I just, like he says, he can make it quick, so can I.
It's interesting that you mentioned. It's interesting that you mentioned him, because Robert Whittaker, he was talking about your fight, and although a lot of people thought you did a great job and showed a lot of heart, he believed that Kelvin Gastelum being able to hit you. What's going on over there?
Inside jokes.
I love it. What's your friend's name, just so we can put it on?
Chance. Chance. What's up?
What's up, Chance?
Chance.
Put him on.
He didn't want to be on. Now he's got no choice.
Everybody get on Chance after you watch this.
Israel can tell us Chance's Insta, and then he'll have no choice but to be a part of it.
What was that? Sorry?
At the end of as we wrap up, you can tell us Chance's Insta, and then he can be a part of this. Right. You'll have no choice.
Plug it up.
Yeah.
Chance to make it easy.
I was going to say, Izzy, just on that fight, Robert Whittaker was a little bit critical, said that he believes if Kelvin Gastelum was able to hit you, he'll be able to hit you in your fight when you guys go down. Did you hear any of his criticisms about the fight? And do you take any of that on board? Does it affect you in any way?
No, not really. I mean, look, come on, let's keep it real. Kelvin, what he did, we've already figured it out. 2 days after, me and Eugene were like, because Eugene hit me up, he's like, fuck. And he told me what it was, and I was like, oh, that's right. Like, it's something that we do as well to close the distance. But we just didn't see it in real time. Hindsight's a powerful weapon. And yeah, I'm really good at rematches, just put it that way. But Robert said a lot of things. Come on, everyone said a lot of things since my debut. Blah, 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 blah. I overcome that. Blah, 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 blah. I overcome that. Even Robert, Streets is talking. I know for a fact he didn't want to fight me. I know for a fact he'd rather have fought Kelvin. And he can say, oh, I can hit him too. I'm quicker, I'm faster. This is all what people say. Eventually, we're going to fight. And we're going to fight. You're across the cage from me. It's a different story. I mean, Kelvin was the one saying I don't have no pop in my punches. He found that out in round 2. Like, I was popping off. And then in round 5, fucking popcorn everywhere. But yeah, Robert can say whatever he wants to say. He's this, he's that. I'm quick, I'm faster, I can make it a little quick. I'm like, all right, okay, sure. We're going to fight. The fight's already sold. I don't have to say anything. Even he started making memes. I'm like, who the fuck taught you how to make memes? Who the fuck taught you how to make memes? I know he doesn't run his page as well. I know who runs his page. I know. You go back and you read, like, some of this, like, the comments, like, not comments, but, like, the captions. I'm like, he's not writing that shit because he doesn't like to do that kind of shit. I know who runs his page. I just won't say yet, but yeah, I'm like, who the fuck taught you how to make memes? Like, keep that same energy and don't try and change what got you to the dance. Like, you trying to clown me? Do you want to get memed? Nigga, I'm the meme majesty. I'll bury him if I have to. I already made him look like a fucking chocolate bar. That's the only Whittaker that's New Zealand owned and made. That's that chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
With its roots from Africa, by the way. That dark cocoa, But yeah, don't try and come up here and try and, I'm going to hype the fight now. Make a meme, talk some shit. Like, that's the energy. You know, like, yeah. You didn't say it right in the interview. You said if you start to, like, now we see I'm making him change his character. And it's like, yo, that's weird. That's already a tell for me. But hey, like I said, we can talk all the shit we want. We're going to sit across from each other at some point and talk some shit at a press conference. But eventually, he's going to stand in front of me. And he's going to, we'll see. Because I already know, but we'll see. You can't judge that last fight and say, I mean, you can take whatever you can take. Oh, he gets hit a lot. Cool. That's what you get from that fight. People go, oh, Kelvin's got a hard chin. Kelvin's so tough. I'm like, nigga, I don't like to brag, but I'm fucking hell. You see, I look like a fucking potato after that fight. I took some shots, but not once did my ass hit the ground. Kelvin's ass hit the ground like 5 or 6 times, or even 7. So, yeah. I mean, you can say whatever you want. I just stay calm, composed, and I've been through a lot of adversity. The way we train is different. We push to the breaking point, but we're smart about it. That's why we don't get hurt and pull out of every single fight. I'm even going to I'm going to put a wager out there, see if he makes it to this fight. Because for me, I'm keeping that same energy with the way I train. If he is, he's going to make it to the fight. So I prepare for him, but I don't know if he's going to make it to the fight. That's just
so what's
history.
What's the wager? What's the wager that you're putting out there?
Let me think about it and I'll tweet it.
Oh,
or even like the bet. What's the name? What's the name? Is it What's do you guys have in Australia? Bet Live or whatever.
Bet Easy or something like that.
Bet Easy. Yeah, they should put a wager of will Robert make it to this fight? Will he pull out of this fight and put odds on it based on all his other fights? That should be a new wager that gets added to the odds.
So such a tease, Israel. Can't get the exclusive. That's all right. But I was gonna say.
Girls say too.
yeah. I bet they do. I was gonna say, do you like that? You know, you kind of had this war with Kelvin, and you've had a bit of breathing room. I know you like to take fights back to back, and it seems like the UFC just hates you taking holidays. But do you like that you've gotten a bit of breathing room? Because, and I hate to bring Rob back into it because he was actually very complimentary, but he did say that he felt like, in those later rounds, it kind of showed, your schedule showed that he felt like you didn't really want to be there anymore.
What? If I didn't want to be, I would have quit. If I didn't want to be there, I would have found a way out. But I'm not like that. I'm not a weak-minded person. Like, I didn't want to be there. See, that's the kind of shit this nigga be talking, man. And I heard he says I'm bothered. I'm not bothered, nigga. I'm just speaking like truth, facts. The way he speaks is truth, or what he thinks is true. I'm speaking facts. So if he thinks I don't want to be there, then that 5th round wouldn't have happened. You see that 5th round? I know he was mad when I won, and he even said on some interview like, "Oh, it could have gone either way." On what fucking planet could that have gone either way? That shows you the kind of like reserve he had for me winning. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad I got some time off. I'm refreshed. I've been in the gym, and man, I feel like I never left. Like literally, my body's not sore. I'm not aching anywhere. I'm just rolling. I'm literally just rolling. I feel amazing. So, yeah, I can't wait. I'm inspired as well, just being back home, touching the soil. And the way I did it, I didn't have no PR team trying to, like, fucking round up shit. My shit was authentic, you know. I heard his poor he fell through. Fucking Warriors and the Blues denied or declined having anything to do with him. So he tried to do a little meet and greet, round it up real quick. Trying to get some likes and talking about, I use my platform to push education. Because I'm like, well, what are you doing? I'm not about that. I'm not trying. This is not what I'm trying to do. I'm inspiring people in my own way by just living my life, by being authentic. You know, I don't do it for the likes. I do it for the love. So I'm not out here like a politician trying to like rally up people to. That's not my style. So yeah, I mean, keep that same energy. Keep that same energy.
We really appreciate your time, Israel. We'll let you go in just a sec. The coffee looks good. Just a quick question. In the conversation we had with Rob, he brought up the fact that he wants to fight Jon Jones. Said he believes Jon would beat you. What do you make of Rob now being keen on that fight? And what kind of chances would you give him against Jon Jones?
I know. Yep. Yeah, you too. Okay, everybody call him Mr. Me Too. I mean, everyone always tries to, me too, I want to fight Jon Jones. All right. Go. Do it. My time will come. And even like that's a fight that ever since it just kind of like showed up, it just keeps like entices me. Because I showed you guys the receipts and Eugene talked about it as well. He confirmed it.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, that's weird how the Matrix works, man. I'm just sitting there after I beat Anderson Silva and I'm just like I like challenges. I like shit that makes you rise to the occasion, that makes you want to get out of bed and be like, oh shit, I don't want to get my ass kicked, so I gotta put that work in. If not, I'll look like an EDOS in front of fucking worldwide TV. So yeah, I like that fight, and if he likes that fight, well, you're welcome to it. I mean, he was at welterweight, he fucking got starched. Middleweight, he's doing all right. He's a champ now. Also, one thing I realized: how the fuck is he champion when he's the interim champion? I'll have you think about that for a second. How did he win the belt, interim belt, off Romero, and he got the unified belt? How? Who did he beat? As he defending his belt? How? Googles, because I've already done my Googles. But people need to like literally do your Googles. He was the interim champ. He's the interim champ. He never actually won the real belt. He was the interim champ and still the interim champ. He hasn't really done much work. I've had 6 fights in 1 year. What has he done the last 3 years? So if they want to keep throwing that interim shit around, because hey, I'll check my belt. I don't say no interim. And my belt's on that new flex. So, yeah.
I absolutely can't wait for this press conference. Just quickly, before we give out Chance's Instagram and Chance will hate his life because everybody's going to start following. You mentioned Romero. He actually tweeted at you saying that he'll see you soon. What did you think of his?
I'll see you soon, boy.
Yeah. What did you think of that? He he's a 27 millionaire now. Do you think he'll be fighting for that title like he claims after UFC 241?
Does that company even have like 5 million? I don't know. It's one of those things. I mean, hopefully he gets the money. Hey, if he wants to keep fighting as well. Well, at least he can say something other than I am Groot, because that's literally what I hear every time. That was funny. I see you soon, boy. I am Groot. That's so funny. That's what it sounds like. It's like, hey, say something else.
I'll tell you what, I can't wait to see what happens with you and Rob. Israel, thank you so much for joining us. Now, as we wrap up, it's time to give out your friend's Instagram.
Yo,
making a big star.
At Chance Who on Instagram. Ooh. I repeat, at Chance Who. At Chance Who.
Chance Who?
Like
WHO or HOO?
WHO at CHANCEWHO. Is there underscore? No underscore. At Chance Who. You see him on my stories all the time acting a fool. He's pretty funny. He's a cool dude. And like I said, ladies, slip and slide. Slide on me on his DMs, please.
Well,
it's slippery. I got to go physio.
Well, don't forget to follow the man at Stylebender, arguably the most important Twitter and Instagram. Israel, we can chat to you all day, but we'll let you go, man. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Good luck at the physio.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Israel. Really appreciate it, man. Take care.
Hey, this is Ariel Helwani, and you're listening to Submission Radio with my 2 favorite mates, Dennis and Casper.
All right, guys. Our next guest has been taking over UFC Media Days with his hilarious and fresh style of interviews. He is at every major UFC event and even most biggest boxing events, repping the flag for the MacLife.com. He was even at Fury Schwartz this past weekend. He was on our UFC 234 post-fight show, but it is his official episode debut today. Oscar Willis himself, welcome officially. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks very much for having me. It's actually the second time I've been on your show, but it's, yeah.
Well, the first one was a GSP reaction video, which technically wasn't an episode. So this is the official debut.
This is the prime time. This is the prime time, Oscar. It's the bright lights, the big city, the dozens of views. My mom watches this one. All right, she doesn't watch the reaction videos. She has better things to do. So
listen, I didn't want to sound fruity. I just thought, I was like, well, I wanted the opportunity in case you wanted to redo the intro, but I prefer rolling with it. And yeah, this is my prime time debut. And Dennis, because you got the big name of me, now you don't only have your mum watching, you got my dad as well.
Whoa! There you go. 2 different countries. There's at least 3 or 4 subscribers for both of us in this interview, so I'm happy to have you on the program. And let's get straight into it, because I feel like your media interviews don't get the credit they deserve. And people refer to
thanks,
you
man.
as the Mac Life interviewer, but you do have a name and you've been killing it, grinding on the road as a one-man team alongside every other single MMA big outlet. How do you typically approach media day? And how do you find being on the road all the time and bringing everyone to this sort of excellent coverage?
Yeah, well, sorry guys, someone just walked in. I'm actually at the UFC Apex Center, and so there's a few people milling in and out. But how do I usually approach it? Well, I wake up, have a cup of coffee, just smell the excellence in the air. No, it's to be honest, I just sort of try and keep it casual. I feel like these fighters, they hear the same questions from different people over and over again. And so I think I don't want to just be another person to ask them the same sort of questions. I'd rather try and make it a bit different. And then to do that, I basically just try and aim to make them laugh at first. And then from then on, I just kind of wing it, really. There's not really a formula. As long as they laugh and as long as you sort of start off on a friendly level, I think it can go quite well. I mean, obviously, sometimes they don't laugh and then it's a slow death for us both, but it's fine.
Slow death for us both. See, this is the kind of personality that you bring to your interviews. And this is, I feel like the MMA world, this is what they've been craving, the personality interviews, the humor, the wit. And I think that's what a lot of people like. And I hate when I see people going, oh, the Mac Life interview is pretty great. His name's Oscar, goddammit. All right, give the man credit. Just quickly, I wanted to get your thoughts on Fury Schwartz this past weekend because you were there. But you are in the UFC Apex Center. Just quick sort of reactions being there for, I guess, most of the day. What do you think? Any big takeaways? Any sort of big things stand out? Of course, Dana White's office. You probably went in there and, used the toilet just for fun, right?
Yeah. Oh, naturally. Well, first of all, guys, I appreciate the kind words, and I feel, mutually that the Submission Radio guys don't get nearly enough credit. So, and thank you again for saying my name. I'll pay you. I'll Venmo you after the show. Like agreed.
We take Bitcoin, please, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, Ben Askren must be a fan.
The tax office can't trace that.
Understood. The Apex Center is great. There's still a few rooms in construction, but essentially by the time this is finished, it's going to be like the UFC's production center hub, I think. And also, interestingly, Dana mentioned a lot today during his sort of interactions with us media about how much he wants to do other sports here, primarily boxing. He wants to start bidding for the big fights like the Furies, the Wilders, the Joshuas. He wants to start trying to bid those guys to come to Zuffa Boxing. So that's interesting. He says he'll make his first move into boxing in autumn. He says that now is the time to make these big name heavyweights fight, and he thinks he'll be able to find a way to do that. Whether he can, that's, he's fighting 100 years of boxing corruption, but it'll be interesting to see.
Wow. So what exactly is he aiming? He's aiming to actually get the biggest names in boxing into, Zuffa's version of boxing promotion?
Well, there's a lot of, I'm still figuring this out. I don't know where I'm going to go. His first move is to hold a amateur boxing bout. He's going to have a few amateur fights here at the Apex Center, including his son. His son's going to box on the card, which is more of an opportunity than any of us got to be able to box in the Apex Center. But good for his kids. And then from there, he says he's just going to work with promoters, see what role he can take in the industry of boxing, and sort of go from there. I think he's being very ambitious. I think there's a lot of structure in boxing that he's going to have to essentially destroy. As he said, I'm going to destroy it and rebuild it better, which I think is easy to say. And we'll see how the other promoters in boxing respond to such a colourful figure as Dana White getting involved. But it'll be interesting. If he can make ground, it'll be great.
I wonder if Dana White's sort of contribution will be sort of from a production standpoint when it comes to boxing and sort of making the events seem and run a little bit smoother like the UFC events do. I'm just wondering though, with Tyson Fury's win over Schwartz, I mean, we have a massive star in boxing. Now, Tyson Fury, he's always been an extravagant guy, but I feel like finally people have sort of caught up to the fact that this guy's super entertaining. Where do you sort of see Tyson Fury as it stands in the pound-for-pound ranking as the best heavyweights at the moment? What does your sort of top four look like, Oscar?
I think Fury is number one. I think after Joshua lost to Ruiz, you have to put Wilder at number 2. Before that, I'd have probably had Joshua at number 2 because English. But now that Joshua's lost, you have to have Wilder at number 2. And Fury Wilder is very interesting because essentially I think Fury outboxes Wilder every day of the week, but Wilder can also turn his lights out for 5 seconds before he pops back up and rightfully wins the fight. But I think so that's always interesting. But then number 3 is Ruiz, and then number 4 is Joshua. I think that's kind of how you have to have it at present. The rematch between Joshua and Ruiz will be interesting because then those two could switch around. But I think for most people, that's the top 4 right now.
I was going to say, what do you think it would do sort of for the sport of boxing to have Fury as the face? Because obviously the game plan here I know you sort of exchanged a few words with Tyson Fury, got a few words out of him. Obviously the game plan here was put this fight on ESPN, give the casual fans kind of a taste of Fury, get them hooked, and then obviously lead into the big rematch with Wilder. But, you know, Fury, he's so charismatic. Do you think he can sort of be, you know, this era's Tyson or Klitschko or, you know, Ali? Not you know, maybe not as iconic, but iconic in his own way.
Well, certainly he has the charisma. I mean, he is a showman. There's a couple of things about him being the face of boxing that might cause an issue. Firstly, he doesn't always knock people out. Knocking Tom Schwartz out in the second round is a rarity for Tyson Fury. And I think while his shtick is very, very entertaining and I'm going to knock him out, this and that, if he continued to never knock people out, I think the general public would eventually be like, oh, he's all talk. Secondly, while he is very entertaining, he has said some things in the past that if he was the face of boxing and as popular as he is today, I don't necessarily think that would do good things for the sport. Putting my professional hat on for a moment, I am, of course, referring to these incredibly homophobic and sexist comments he made in the past. He did apologize for them, but it wasn't the level of his apology compared to the level of heinous things he said is a little bit wonky.
I'm curious, Oscar. I mean, obviously, a lot of people already have Joshua winning this rematch with Ruiz, but do you believe there's a chance when that rematch happens in November or whenever it happens, there's a chance that Ruiz maybe gets that second win over Joshua? Or do you think most likely Joshua comes out on top there? Because there's something weird going on with Joshua. I can't put my finger on it. I mean, we watched that fight. When he got knocked down, he kind of had this look on his face like, I want to say he was almost happy. And then at the end, when he was doing the post-fight press conferences, when they're bringing up the rematch, I mean, he wasn't even really like that keen on getting that rematch in with Ruiz, saying he doesn't even know who he's going to fight. He's not sure what's going to happen. He almost seems like a man that's been carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders for a really long time. And it's kind of enjoying losing some of that pressure off his back.
I completely agree. When he did the post-fight press conference and he said, what about the rematch? He said, you know who I really want to fight, meaning Wilder. And when he first said that, I sort of thought, there's a man who is concussed. But I think as time's gone on, it's actually like it reminds me of when Anderson lost the title to Chris Weidman. There was DJ, and when Demetrius lost it to Cejudo, there was almost like an air of like, oh, thank God, that's finally off my back. Even Rose, like recently, Rose was apparently seemed quite comfortable. So maybe, you know, GSP used to talk very frequently about the pressures of carrying that championship belt around, and maybe Joshua did feel that. I mean, he's been a huge star in the UK for a very long time with this media spotlight blazoned on him, and maybe the combination of that as he went into America was even more. So maybe he was just relieved. But then also, maybe he was, he was quite concussed. I mean, that sounds a bit flippant, but he clearly was rocked very badly in that third round. And that moves on to the point of who could win the rematch. I absolutely think Andy Ruiz could win the rematch. I was talking to Tyson Fury's coach, Ben Davison, and he's a very sort of technically minded coach. And he said that if Joshua just thinks, oh, this time I'll just be more aggressive, or oh, this time I'll be more reserved, he was like, he won't win because he makes fundamentally tactical mistakes that Ruiz. So the taller guy, when Joshua jabs, he always steps in with his jab. But if he misses that jab and it goes over Ruiz's head, which it does because Ruiz is shorter, then Joshua has closed that gap for Ruiz to fire back. That's a huge tactical error, but Joshua has been boxing in this textbook way for so many years. Has got enough time to change himself. So that's very interesting. So absolutely. And I think he struggles against shorter guys with a good left hook, which is Ruiz. And I think Ruiz is the first shorter guy who can fire quickly. And so I think absolutely Anthony could be in trouble. I think it's a very interesting rematch.
I think it's going to be fascinating. You mentioned relief just then, and sort of a guy who must be feeling pretty relieved, and I guess a mix of emotions. Obviously, the American gangster himself, Chael Sonnen, retired this past weekend. Well, went back into retirement, I should say, after a loss to Lyoto Machida at Bellator 222. You know, despite his record, Oscar, he's still one of the biggest stars in the sport, and will probably... I guess he's got a mixed legacy. You know, some people talk about how he changed the game. He was an entertainer. He was a fighter who didn't necessarily have the success or accolades, but he left his mark on the sport. He also had some controversy as far as PED use, which I think largely was forgotten. What do you think Sonnen's legacy is in MMA and how he'll be remembered in the sport?
Big question, man. I think...
Not fucking around here.
Sorry, that... sound like a guy with a Hispanic accent to me. I think Chael's a good, not great competitor, but I think he embodied the old school throwback fighting spirit of anyone, anytime, anywhere. I actually think he sort of made that idea of, oh, this guy's rare, he fights anyone. He actually made that popular when he was fighting Anderson and then up to Jon Jones. So I think as a competitor, he had the competitive spirit and he was very tough, but he was like in the tier below the greats, you know, and that's what his role was against Anderson. What he's done for the sport is also an interesting legacy because he is fucking hilarious, to be honest. And he really emboldened this trash talking idea. And at the time that was quite fresh. Now, it's interesting looking back because if he had retired a few years ago, you'd be like, wow, best talker ever, amazing, really got the idea of media. But now it's almost like a lot of people have tried to copy him. And now it's like, oh, his legacy is he's given us all these subpar trash talkers that we don't really enjoy that much. So that's kind of a bit interesting. So it's almost like what he did worked for him because he's so naturally charming, naturally charismatic. And there was always a bit of a wink and a nudge to it. You know, he was always like kind of joking around. So I think it worked for him. For the sport as a whole, I think it might actually have been a little bit of a detriment. But personally, and the PED usage is hilarious because he did a podcast with TJ Dillashaw where TJ spoke about his EPO use, and the comments are just like, oh, snake, you know, steroid user and stuff like that. Meanwhile, he's sitting across from Chael, who, you know, famously said, you know, how many steroids did you fail for again? He was like 6, still the record, or something like that. You know, the guy. So when you're sitting across from that guy, it's just, I think at some point, when Chael stopped really being a contender for the title, he sort of became almost like a meme fighter. Like, it was fun to support him. This undefeated, undisputed idea. It sort of became like, it's fine because he's just sort of a character now. And then I think that sort of, he could do anything now, and I think people just forgive him because it's like, oh, it's old Chael. So his legacy is complicated, but in my opinion, he is a Hall of Famer for the role he played in the UFC at that time. And in my mind, he's great, and I'm very sad to see him call it a day, even though I think it was probably time.
I agree with you, Oscar. And there's been a lot of articles that have come out by people that we respect that have labeled him, you know, the world, you know, one of the worst drug cheats retires from MMA, or one of the biggest racists it retires from MMA. And it's one of those things for me where, you know, I feel like everybody's entitled to their own opinion as to how they saw his legacy, but I will say that he was actually one of the guys that's impacted me the most when it comes to fighters who've ever fought in MMA. I remember when I was younger, before me and Casper did the program, I would put on videos of his countdowns, videos of his embeddeds, and I would rewatch them over and over religiously. For some reason, the stuff that he said and the way that he said it, obviously outside of some of the crazy racist stuff, was kind of self-esteem building for me. I don't know, like, I'd have a rough time. I'd look at his video. I really liked the way he saw things. I liked some of his theories on fighting, like if you go into a fight and you get beaten, well, that's what you sign up for, or, you know, the stuff that he said about people, you know, thanking God for winning fights, or the stuff that he said after his fights when he lost, when he would be completely honest and say the guy was better than him. And, you know, I don't want to create an excuse for him for cheating in the sport, but if you look back to his day, and it's kind of like a time capsule on the sport for back in the day, I mean,
you know, TRT exemption. He was fighting guys like Vanderlei Silva, Nate Marquardt, Anderson Silva. You know, Vitor Belfort was in the division. He kind of wasn't the only guy cheating, which doesn't make it okay. But that was just a different time in the sport. You know, it's like when you watch a movie from the 90s that you thought was really good, but you're like, man, this is really sexist and racist when you put it up to this day. You know, it's a time capsule. He was in a different era. I honestly think that he had an absolute legacy in the sense that he brought a different look into how the sport looks, how the sport works, and the sort of mindset that people go through. And again, if anybody hasn't seen his like pre-fight interviews, the stuff that he used to do with MMA fighting and those guys in his heyday in the middleweight division, I mean, what are you guys doing? It's absolutely unbelievable. I think he is one of the last, you know, right now when we watch MMA, I don't see many stars. He's one of these guys where he's like one of these stars that's retiring that, you know, there's not really going to be anyone like it. Like when you're around him, you get this feeling like you're around a star. And his interviews about, you know, feeding the guys, you know, carrots, or even the fact that he promised his dad to win the title on his deathbed. And then they're asking him about it at the post-fight press conference, you know, and he's breaking into tears, man. That really got me. Like,
yeah,
you know, he's like, I know. And he's like, I tried, you know, and he's like breaking. He's crying. Like that's legit stuff. And he legitimately loves fighting, you know, and he legitimately loves those guys that would take a fight at the drop of a hat. So I think, to me, I understand people's opinion on him, that he might have been a bit racist and a bit of a cheater. But to me, his legacy will be the fact that
it's like talking about your granddad. He's a bit racist, but you still love him.
Yeah, it's a different time. You know, it is a different time. And I don't want to point fingers and stuff, but if you go back on Twitter and you go through people's feeds, you know, and Kevin Hart can't host the Oscars and James Gunn can't direct Guardians of the Galaxy, and we hold it against people forever, it's a bit tough as well, you know? Like sometimes we have to understand the time and place. I'm not saying it's fine. I'm just saying that some people are looking for things to point out and missing big things. And one of the big things was he personally changed my life with some of the stuff that he did. Like I would watch his interviews. It was before we did Submission Radio, and it really got me pumped up for the fights. He was one of the reasons I was so into it. So, you know, that's what he did for me personally.
I agree. He did, and same for me. There's actually videos online I'd recommend anyone go out and watch where he's talking to younger kids or he's talking to younger fighters, and he's being very motivational. And those very much inspired me.
Like the Ultimate Fighter, what a great coach, right?
Yeah, that brought the series back
fantastic.
For a bit.
And he's just the racist stuff and stuff like that. I think like sometimes, and I'm not trying again, like so, I'm not trying to defend it, but sometimes you need to kind of, like you said, view it through a certain lens. And a lot of the time, like he was saying stuff that was a bit messed up, but he was saying it very like tongue-in-cheek and very sort of ironically. And I think maybe there's some of the issues is Chael was playing a character, but he played it so well that it kind of blurred the lines between this guy who really means it and a guy who didn't. And if you meet Chael, I know he never texts us back, but if you meet
he did. Nice. I texted him just before to be on the program. No luck, but we forgive him. We forgive him.
He's probably changed his number or something, you know.
Yeah.
That's what we'll tell ourselves.
He actually told us last time that his number didn't change. I don't know. That interview that we did with him.
And rather blow you off. I believe those were his exact words.
Yeah, and I mean, people are going to, sorry, Cast to jump in, but people are going to jump on the fact that, oh, well, you guys are racist for liking Chael Sonnen, and that's not what we're saying at all. And we're not supporting PED use. But if the same people that say that he's a cheater and a racist ignore the fact that he's had a massive effect on the sport, and for a lot of casual fans who didn't see those racist comments, who don't know about his cheating, sort of change their lives in a lot of ways, then that's also being a little bit ignorant in some ways. And no one's racist against us. We're a bunch of white guys that live in Australia and stuff. So it's not like we're being, you know, no one's saying all these horrible things to us. So it could be different per person. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but he definitely changed stuff for me.
I'm sure if you're Brazilian, you'd probably think a little bit about it. But, you know,
this would be a very different conversation.
Yeah, well, he's complicated, right? And the very popular people often are very layered and very complicated. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're really bad, and that's what makes them these charismatic people, because they're just different and unique, and they're layered, and they can do bad shit and good shit.
But the good thing is Brazilians will never hear this because they allegedly don't have internet, so that's okay. Anyway, we just lost all our Brazilian subscribers. Just kidding, Brazil. We love you, all right? We had Fernando Pradas on the show, so all right, we love Brazil.
Edu that does the coverage for us in Brazil. Great guy.
Edu's Brazilian, right? Just quickly on Chael, I marvel at the fact, and I know this is not exactly news, but a guy with such a pretty average record is still one of the biggest stars and built an empire, not just sort of in the cage. Like he had multiple title shots, which you could in some ways argue, did he really deserve them? But he was on Fox. He was on ESPN. He's got a massive podcast. Like, you look at his YouTube channel. He's created this empire for himself, and he's had so much success outside of the cage, even though he didn't really have that much success in the cage. Don't get me wrong, he had some big wins, but also to your point about, you know, Oscar, him fighting anyone at any time, like, he's fought most of the greats within his weight class, and sometimes some out of him. The only guy who's fought Anderson Silva, Fedor Emelianenko, and Jon Jones. Granted, he didn't beat any of them, but he still fought them. Lyoto Machida, former champion. Fedor, obviously former champion. Rampage, former champion. Vanderlei, former champion. Tito, former champion. Rashad Evans, former champion. Shogun, who he beat, former champion. Jones, Anderson, Bisping, who ended up being champion. Get a good win over Brian Stan. Like, he's fought some incredibly tough guys, and I think the reason why he's been so successful is just his intelligence. And I think this empire that he has now, still on ESPN, he's still going to be a bigger name than you know, a lot of fighters in the UFC. I think, you know, being on ESPN helped him even that much more. And I think it's because he's a smart guy.
Well, I think, you know, his dad's unfortunately passed away, and Chael might think he didn't make that promise up to his dad. But if he never was the champion of the UFC, he was the champion of our hearts. And that's really what matters.
That's what counts. Yeah, of course.
He tried. I mean, what can you say? And he, you know what? He did a great job in that Lyoto Machida fight. Super tough. I can't believe he took those knees. He actually had some success.
Yeah.
Impressed. Okay, let's quickly speak about a couple of things, and we'll let you go, Oscar. I know it's been a long interview, and we appreciate your time. Speaking of stars in the sport, just want to get your thoughts on John Kavanagh's appearance on Ariel's show this past weekend. He said he'd like to see Conor fight Nate Diaz next. This is something that John's been saying for years now, so there's no real surprises here. But when you look at the landscape and available future fights, what do you think Conor's future looks like? Who do you expect to see Conor fight next? And when would you think it's likely? And we know you represent the Mac Life, so we just want to say that this is just personal Oscar Willis stuff. This isn't the Mac Life. This isn't any inside news that we're trying to squeeze it out of you. Just as a fight fan, what do you think? Well, what do you think sort of makes sense?
Well, but I mean, I don't have any inside news to give you, unfortunately. So even if you try to squeeze, there's not a lot of juice here, I'm afraid. I think Conor's in an interesting spot because essentially for the lightweight division's just as crazily open as it's always been. You know, okay, so you have Khabib and Dustin fighting, and that's about it. Outside of that, everything's on the table. So even if Diaz lost to Pettis, they could easily do that third fight. That would be both him and Conor looking to get that win back. That would make sense for a third fight. If Pettis beat Diaz, Pettis and Conor have talked about fighting each other for years, way back when Conor was a featherweight. You could do that fight. Supposedly they offered Pettis the fight in July before Conor got his hand injury that Kavanagh mentioned on the show. So you could do that fight. Tony Ferguson, probably the number one contender for the winner of Khabib Dustin. But let's say he doesn't get that. Let's say one of those, the winner comes out very injured. You put him against Conor. That's a fight been in the making for ages as well, and very stylistically interesting. Side of Tony, you got Justin Gaethje, which, I mean, sure, who doesn't want to see absolute carnage? And then lastly, you got Cowboy, who even though he just had a loss, I still think his personality versus Conor is a fight that many people want to see. So I guess in a roundabout way, what I'm saying is what's in the future for Conor is basically anything he wants to pick, really. He could probably pick and choose whatever he wants right now.
I think you hit the nail on the head because, you know, when you hear Dana White saying that he's assuming Ferguson is next for the winner of Khabib Poirier, it doesn't really fill you with confidence. It's like, what do you mean assuming? Like, who are you taking orders from? Who, you know, you're not waiting on anyone except potentially Conor McGregor. And then he sort of credits Conor McGregor for being a great businessman and a great negotiator. Kind of sounds like he's saying, well, Tony will probably get that fight if Conor doesn't want that fight. And it's interesting because obviously if Khabib retains against Dustin, it seems like a very real possibility that they'll do that Khabib fight, as risky as that seems for Conor. And if Dustin wins, I just have this vision of Dana White coming out. Yeah, so we did the fight that, you know, Conor owns a win over this guy. They've been wanting to battle back for ages. Dustin wants that fight. You know, it makes sense. It's the fight that people wanted. We always give them what they want. Tell me you can't see that happening, even though theoretically it doesn't really make sense to put a Conor in an immediate title shot. But tell me you can't see that happening.
Well, I mean, if you listen to any of the public comments Dana's made recently, you can only assume it's at least on the table. Brett Okamoto from ESPN did an interview with Dana and actually laid it out very well. He said, look, you either do Tony versus Khabib, because that's the sort of the correct sporting thing to do, or you make the fight that the fans want to see, and that's Conor versus Khabib. That was assuming Dustin didn't win, of course, but the same thing still applies, right? You can still say the fans want to see him fight Dustin because he beat Dustin, and you can still say the fans want to see him fight Khabib because that's probably the biggest fight in the sport in terms of a widest audience possible. So yeah, it's absolutely on the table, and I think so. Whenever Dana White says we'll see how this plays out, there's always something, there's something could go change any moment, So yeah, I think it's definitely possible. I think it just sort of I know I sound like Dana, but it probably does depend on what happens in Khabib Dustin. It probably does depend on how they come out of that fight. And I know there's a December show they probably want Khabib to come back on, or Conor to maybe return from that injury. If it works out in time, then you don't know. You just don't know. Depends how many times Tony Ferguson calls his phone, probably.
It's fascinating because then you've also got the situation that if Khabib loses, do they do this like Conor Khabib fight just because that's a massive fight on its own, and then Tony fights Dustin, so he still gets the title shot. It's fascinating to see what's going to happen there. But for now, we are looking forward to this weekend because Artem Lobov takes on Paulie Malignaggi at Bare Knuckle FC 6. And I mean, you were there for Bare Knuckle FC 5 for Artem's last fight. You spent a lot of time around the man. You've been to all the press events. You'll be at this event as well. How would you describe this feud between Artem and Paulie? And do you feel like at times it's crossed the line? It's almost like you can't have the two in the same room without an incident. And do you feel like Paulie's getting to that sort of cringe level now? Is he getting to a bit of cringe? Is he getting into a bit of Henry Cejudo when we do these events?
Well, Paulie being cringe, I don't necessarily think is new news, but he's always been a bit sort of odd, I think. As far as the feud itself, I think it's very, even if maybe it's less real for Artem, for Paulie, it's pretty obvious if you talk to the man and mention Conor McGregor's name or Artem Lobov's name, it just rapidly goes downhill. The guy is seriously, even if he's trying to say he's not, is seriously invested in this fight, in this feud. Has it crossed the line? I think spitting is pretty unnecessary. I think swinging a microphone at Artem's head is probably quite unnecessary as well. And then when I actually interviewed Paulie Malignaggi in New York a couple of weeks ago, and I said, look, I understand that you've sold lots of fights in your history. You're a very good talker. Spitting, and he was like, they crossed the line. First, I'd have spat in Artem's mum's face if she was there. Yeah. And it's sort of like, well, what did they do to cross the line? They publicized a sparring session, and in your eyes, they publicized it in a way that made you look unfairly negative. How is spitting on the same level as that, as crossing a line? I think spitting is far worse than doing this. Something, it's like, this idea that he could do whatever he wants because they crossed the line first doesn't really wash with me. And as far as Artem goes, like you said, it's like the guy shows up and then this dude from New York somehow attacks him in some fashion, like every time. Everything, like they're doing a press conference on Thursday. I bet they scuffle then too. Do you know what I mean? It just seems to be unstoppable.
I was going to say, you actually did a really nice interview with Paulie where you addressed his criticisms of the MMA media and sort of asked them about that. I really liked that. It was very sort of original. It was an original idea. I think you navigated it really well. What did you think of his answers?
I thought they were long. But yeah, no, look, he specifically said in the press conference that he had an issue with MMA media because we treat Artem as if he's on the same level as Paulie, or we put Artem's name first in articles, Lobov versus Malignaggi. So I wanted to give him his opportunity. So I went up to him. My first question was, you've got a lot of issues with MMA media. Tell us about it. And he said, that we don't ask the tough questions, and unlike boxing media, we are fans and we have a biases to fighters and we aren't trying to really interview people. And then I said, well, that's, boxing media. I mean, I'm not trying to call anyone out here, but, they have the same issues, if that's what he thinks MMA media suffer from too. And I just thought he has his own sort of idea of like how unfairly he's been treated and all this. And I don't necessarily think it rings true to me, at least, anyway. I mean, it was 2 years ago, and for how angry he is about it, it's sort of, I don't quite get it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like even though Paulie's had a really good career in boxing, a lot of casual fans kind of know him because of this whole feud with Conor McGregor and what's happening this weekend. So in a lot of ways, I feel like his name value has sort of taken an upswing in a lot of ways. I mean, outside of beating Artem this weekend, what do you think Paulie's goal here is? I mean, it looks like he wants to fight Conor McGregor, but surely that's not going to happen. So if he does beat Artem, I mean, is there anything next for him that you see in the sort of horizon?
Not that I see. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious he would love that Conor fight. It seems I think that's what his real goal is. But then he also did an interview where he said he's signed up for 2 years worth of bare knuckle. He's signed up for a 2-year contract with bare knuckle, but I don't really see who he could fight in bare knuckle other than Artem. That's currently available. I think, the Conor fight is, stranger things have happened, but I would be surprised if that was what was next for him, So, but I do think that's his motivation. I really do. I think he just feels like this is as close as he can get, and then this one might get Conor out, And also he's getting paid. He says the money doesn't matter, but he is getting paid, so...
Well, there's also the question surrounding sort of, where that money is coming from for Bare Knuckle FC and how long they can sort of keep paying, those kind of contracts. I wanted to ask you sort of on the fight itself. Obviously, you're going to be spending a lot of time around Artem this week. You've done sort of extensive coverage in the past as well. How do you like Artem's chances this weekend against Paulie, and what are you expecting from the fight? Other than pure violence, whichever way it goes.
Well... we're in unknown territory again. I think back to when Conor and Floyd fought, and it was like this: the MMA guy versus the boxing guy, and how does that look? It's like that again, but this time we got bare knuckles involved. So now it's its own unique thing, right? So we've seen what happens when an MMA guy boxes a boxer. Traditionally the boxer wins, but now they're boxing, but there's no gloves to cover up with at all. And then you have to be tough, you have to be aggressive, and it sort of adds this whole third thing. Interestingly as well, the clinch, they don't break up the clinch like in boxing. So if Artem does get a hold of him, he can sit there all day in a position that you would assume favors the guy who's trained grappling. So there is, we're in unknown territory, I think. I think also the rounds are only 2 minutes long, and there's 5 of those. So it's 2 minutes, 1 minute off, 2 minutes, 1 minute off, which essentially means, and if fans haven't seen it, you can find this is a plug, you can find the Jason Knight, Artem Lobov fight on the Mac Life YouTube channel in full. And there you go, baby. But you can see that it's essentially a 2 minute sprint every round. And it's just, as Artem said in an interview earlier this week or last week even, he said that, you go into a blender for 2 minutes and then you take a minute's rest. And I think that favors Artem over Paulie, because Paulie was a very stick and move kind of boxer. His hands have had issues in the past. He was never really a guy who enjoyed slugging it out. So if you have 2 minutes in a smaller ring and Artem can just sort of really go for the aggressive sprint like he did last time, then it's, I don't know, let's see, fists are flying and blood is spurting.
I gotta say, Artem Lobov deserves a lot of credit because maybe his record doesn't really show anything amazing, but he fights the toughest guys that he can fight. And fighting Paulie Malignaggi, a guy who's such a high-level boxer in a bare-knuckle environment, after having that Jason Knight fight not too long ago and recovering from that just to take this fight, it just shows how much heart and how tough he really is. So it's going to be incredible if he could get that win. Now, Oscar, as we wrap up in terms of coverage, I know a lot of people are going to be looking to the Mac Life to see what's happening during Fight Week. You mentioned the press conference on Thursday, but what have you got in store? What can fans expect? I imagine there's going to be some exciting stuff happening. Let me give you the big sell, guys.
Oh yes.
So you want to get yourself onto the Mac Life, yeah? Open up a can of beer. Maybe get yourself a meal, some toast or something to eat with it, to enjoy. Really, truly consume that content as best you can. Nourish yourself. On Thursday, we got the press conference. We'll have another stare down. There's going to be drama. You got to tune in and check that out. Then on Friday, we got the weigh-ins. Paulie Malignaggi has asked for this fight at 154 pounds, a weight heavier than he's ever boxed at before. Is that because he wants some strength behind his punches, or is that because he's too lazy to make the weight cut? Arsen's got an opinion. Paulie's got an opinion. You need to see them on the scales to find out. Tune in on Friday to see the weigh-ins for that. And then on Saturday, we'll have exclusive interviews with Arsen before and after the fight. There'll be blood everywhere. It'll be carnage. And you can find it on the Mac Life. Oh,
absolutely.
It's like a UFC 1 promo. There are no rules.
Yes. It's got a better production value than that. But I was going to say, if you can bring like a spit guard, like what they have at those buffets, those Pizza Hut buffets, and wear it over your face, because I feel like spit's going to be flying. Guys, make sure to follow Oscar Willis on Twitter, at Oscar Willis. Of course, the Mac Live, doing such good coverage. Everybody should jump on, check them out. Just really, really good, different interviews. And it's really good to see you sort of bringing this different look into MMA media and being at all these events. It's absolutely fantastic. And as we wrap up the show, I just want to give out some thanks, Cass. I want to thank Joesph Benavavidez, Israel Adesanya, Tai Tuivasa for coming onto the program. I want to thank all of our listeners. And I want to remind everybody to jump on social media, give us a follow, maybe follow Israel's friend as well. We will be back with another episode of Submission Radio next week. Have a safe weekend.